Hello, and thank you for joining our session. How do you PTA? Virtually, of course. My name is Carolyn McCarty. I'm the Illinois PTA President-elect, and I will be hosting this session, but I'm not alone. Connie McElroy is joining us, and she's monitoring our chat. She's controlling what you see on the screen and pretty much keeping me all together here. So she is our Illinois PTA Secretary, and she will be jumping in near the end when we get to questions. So as you know, the pandemic has changed the way we do many things, and that includes how we PTA. Many of our school buildings are closed, and if they are open, they're really limiting access to the school, to the staff and the students during instructional hours only. So during the next 30 minutes, we will share with you some tips on how to host a virtual meeting and some virtual event ideas that you may want to try in your PTA community. We will be answering questions at the end. So if you have a question, we ask that you type it in the chat. And like I said, Connie's going to be monitoring the chat as we go along here, and she will be bringing those questions up at the end. So next screen, please. So let's start with a virtual meeting. Just like an in-person meeting, there are a few things that need to be planned in advance before hosting the meeting. When are you going to hold your meeting? What business will be conducted? Where will your meeting be held? So when will your meeting be held? If your meeting normally was held on the second Tuesday at 7 o'clock every other month, every even month, or every odd month, it's a good idea to keep it the same. People are already used to that, and they've already got it on their calendar that that's when their PTA meets. If you don't have something like that, or things have changed, which they've changed every day, it seems these days, you may want to do a quick survey for the best time best participation time for everyone. This can be accomplished in many ways. You could send an email out with suggested times or do a doodle poll. You may also want to utilize the sign up function in your Member Hub site. I'm going to have Connie just pull you up a sample so you can see. Here's an example of what a Member Hub sign up could look like. If you've never used this function in Member Hub, it is a great function for signing up volunteers or asking for donations of things, but it can also be used to do a survey. So we're not going to get into the functions of Member Hub tonight. We did that last week. We will probably be doing more in the future. We always are. But for more information on how you can utilize the sign up function, you can click on the help button on your Member Hub site and just type in sign up. It will give you clear instructions, step-by-step instructions on how you can create it and then how you can share it with your participants. Or you can go on the Illinois PTA website, and we have a Member Hub tab right there on the site. You can click on it and you'll find out lots of different training opportunities that are available or get help on a specific issue. Okay, back to preparing for our meeting. Last spring, Illinois PTA also produced a 5-part series called How to Run Your PTA When Schools Are Closed. Part 1 was focused on meetings and elections. This article covered the basic business that must be done by your general membership, and then also business that can be done by your executive board. We encourage everyone to take a look at your bylaws and your standing rules, because there could be additional business that your PTA has established needs to be done by specific groups. So this is just, in this article, is just the basics. There could be others, so make sure you check your bylaws and your standing rules. A link to this article was included in the email that was sent out earlier today, and it will be in your follow-up email that comes out in the next couple days. With everyone's life being so disrupted by the pandemic, sharing the purpose and the expected length of your meeting is very important, and it will help increase participation. This is always a good idea for in-person meetings, but it is especially important while everybody's trying to juggle that screen time at home. Create the agenda in advance and send it out with your invitation to everyone that you wish to participate. You may wish to ask individuals to submit their questions regarding the business items in advance so that they can be addressed either prior to the meeting, during the meeting, or after the meeting, or as we are going to be doing tonight. Prior to the pandemic, the majority of PTAs met in their schools. But as we know, COVID has shut down many of our schools or limited access to them. So we need to find another place to have these meetings, and virtual is the way to go at this point. And there's many, many, many platforms out there. You've got Google Meet, GoToMeetings, Zoom, Skype. The same article that we just discussed, that I just mentioned, the how to run your PTA when schools are closed, has a whole list of different platforms that are available for you. When you're looking for a platform, you will need to use, make sure that you're using a meeting platform that can handle the size of your meeting. Some meetings will only be 5 to 10 people, a small committee meeting, or maybe your board meeting. But if you're hosting a virtual general membership, remember that you may pick up a larger participation than you did in in-person meeting, because they're home, they're available right now, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. So, and it will be easier for them to access your meeting. So make sure that you think about, yeah, we only have 10 people that come to an in-person meeting, or 15 or 20. Well, a virtual meeting, you could end up with 30 or 40. So make sure that your platform that you choose can handle the size of your anticipated meeting. Also, if you have to find a platform that has if you have to use a platform that has a cost to it, check out if they have a not-for-profit rate. Many of them do, including Zoom has a not-for-profit rate that can be utilized. So make sure you look for that. Okay, so let's talk about some tips in conducting your meeting. And this is mostly directed towards the host and the co-host. Connie and I got together a couple days ago and we tested the technology and that we were going to use tonight. We did a dry run, and we actually had a poll that was supposed to go up at the beginning, and some reason tonight it didn't. So I guarantee you technology is not always going to be perfect. You're going to have to make decisions on the fly and go from there. So we did the dry run. We didn't need to go through the whole agenda. We didn't go screen by screen and had me talk through the whole thing, but we wanted to make sure that what you were seeing and hearing is what we wanted you to see and what we wanted you to hear. So that is a really good tip to do in advance of a meeting, especially the first couple times you're going to do one. The next one, I know, dress appropriately. We've all seen the bloopers where somebody is on a video screen, a video meeting, and they don't think about it, and they stand up and they have no pants on. Or they're wearing something that's totally inappropriate for the meeting that they're in. So I always say, ask yourself the question, what you're wearing would you wear to an in-person meeting? If not, get changed. Okay, next, be aware of your surroundings. Make sure that what is behind you is what you want everyone to see. I know in Zoom you can have an artificial background, but this is my background right here. And I made sure before we got on, I closed the doors. I made sure the shelves were neat. But make sure there's nothing behind you that you don't want anyone else to see. I was talking to a friend today, and we were Zooming, and their son walked behind, and I said, "Oh, tell Andrew I said hi." And he said to me, well, it's a good thing he wasn't scratching his butt this time like he was on my last call, because he didn't realize his dad was on a Zoom call at the time. So make sure what is behind you, you're aware of it, and it's what you want everyone to see. Limit distractions. If possible, go to a quiet room, close the door. If possible, obviously, if you have a toddler running around the house or children running around, you want to still be aware of them and where they are. You don't want to shut them out, but try to get yourself to a quiet room. I sent an email this afternoon, told my son, who still lives at home, I'm doing this recording from 7 to 8, so don't come banging into the house. So prepare yourself for that, to limit distractions. Turn off other devices, your tablet, your telephone, your cell phone, whatever other distractions you may have, turn them off or mute them or silence them. And if possible, if there's no way of being in a quiet room, put a headset on. Put a headset on so that you can hear clearly, and one with a microphone will help those on the call with you hear you clearly. And then be engaged. Look at the camera when others are speaking. This is important. Eye contact in an in-person meeting, we all make it. We make sure that we're making eye contact with those that we're speaking to and those that are speaking to us. It tells them that we're interested in what they're doing. So even on a virtual call, find where your camera is and make a point of looking at your camera, whether you are the speaker or if you are the listener. Eye contact is important, and especially during this time when so many people feel disconnected, making that eye contact is very important. So, and it makes people feel that you're engaged. And then the last one, and this was a very shocking one to me because it explains some things to me when I did the research and I heard about this, and that is pausing. So, because we all use different technologies, we're using Wi-Fi. Some people have their laptop hardwired. Some are using the Wi-Fi in their home. Some are using a tablet. Some are using an iPhone or a Samsung, an S10 or whatever. We're all using different type of technology to do our virtual calls. So pause, because when the signals are going between these, sometimes there could be as much as a 3-second delay from when you say something and someone hears it. And then the reverse happens also. So then they reply, and it could take another 2-3 seconds for you to hear that reply, but you've now moved on because you didn't think there was any question. So be deliberate in your pausing. Okay. So those are some basic tips for our host and our hostess. So now let's talk about setting some norms for our participants. An in-person or a virtual meeting, though different, both work towards the same goal. But there are some issues that if you address them at the beginning of your call or as needed during your call, it will help the virtual meeting go smoothly and you to obtain your goal. So the first one is mute, your microphone usage. Do you mute? Do you unmute? It is always recommended that when you are not speaking, that your phone is muted. If you're not sure how to mute it, on your screen, there's a little button. It should say mute or unmute next to it. It's a microphone. If the line is through it, you are muted. Your microphone is turned off. It's closed. If you need to speak, you would click on that icon again. The line would disappear, and your microphone would be open. This is a good thing to explain at the beginning of a call, as the rest of these are, to make sure all the participants understand the protocol that's going to be used through this call. I also sent this information out to you earlier today in the email you received prior to this call. The next thing is, how do you get recognized? Obviously, this has been a challenge for a lot of people, especially when we all first started doing these Zoom calls or GoToMeeting calls and everybody would start speaking up at one time, is setting up the process of which people will be recognized. On a small meeting, maybe 5 to 10 people, maybe again a small committee meeting or a board meeting, executive committee meeting, you may just want to say, wave your hand, have someone, choose someone that's going to be in the meeting and make it their job to monitor however it is you're asking people to be recognized. And they would speak up. So I would wave my hand and Connie would see that because she's monitoring the screen, and she would say, when there's a pause, Carolyn has her hand up. Or another way, if the meeting is a little bit larger, you might want to use a raise your hand function that is available in Zoom, and other platforms that are available have similar type recognition methods. The method we're going to use tonight is the chat box. So if you have a question, we ask that you type it in the chat. Connie's going to be monitoring the chat. She may respond to your question immediately if it's something that she can just answer right away, or she will be bringing those questions forward later in the call. Again, you would have someone monitoring that. As the presenter, you want to be focused on what you're doing and let someone else focus on that, on the monitoring of the call. also recommend, like I said in the beginning, you may need to restate this multiple times during the call, just like you would in an in-person call. You know, when everybody starts going and the conversation's going back and forth and stuff, you may have to stop everybody for a second and say, okay, we need to speak one at a time. Can you raise your hand so that everybody gets a chance to be heard? Again, you may need to restate this. The next thing is viewing, and this is really a preference, but I have found that in a small meeting, if you leave yourself on gallery view, everybody can see each other. It's very engaging, it's very friendly, and everybody feels as strong participants. In a meeting like this, where it's presenting we're presenting a session, you may want to ask everyone to go into speaker mode, especially the bigger and bigger the group gets, because you could end up with a whole lot of pictures on your screen. And that way they will see who's speaking, especially if you're calling on people. So if I was calling on Connie to speak, then when she starts speaking, her picture would be the picture that would be up in front of everyone. Again, it's just setting how it's going to be the best for your participants to participate. And the last thing I have on here is voting and polling. And this has been a question that we've had brought to us a lot during the last 6 months. I guess it's almost 8 months now. Is can you vote on a virtual call? And the answer is yes. This can be done multiple ways. If the vote does not require a ballot vote. If it doesn't require a ballot vote, here are some ways that you can do it. You could do a consensus vote. And that consensus, which could be recorded in the minutes, that there was no objections to the action that was being discussed. The other one is you could do a voice vote. You could just ask everybody, is everybody in favor? And everybody just yells out, and you wait, and then you say, is all those opposed? And you wait and see if you hear. If you can't tell how the vote went, you may ask the secretary to conduct a roll call vote. And at that time, they would call out the name of every voting member and that's on the call and ask them to officially record their vote as yay or nay. The other way that it could be done, and this is if it required a ballot vote, is you could use the polling option within, like Zoom has a polling option, but there is some restrictions to that. You can set it up so it's anonymous, so nobody knows how anybody else voted. But the host, so in the case of tonight, me and Connie are both hosts. We're co-hosts on this call. If we put up a poll, neither one of us could respond to the poll because hosts and hostess, the hosts and co-hosts cannot respond to the poll. Another restriction is that it's one per device. So if my husband and I were sitting at a virtual PTA meeting together on the same device, we could only cast one vote. We would have to be on separate devices in order for us each to cast a vote. The other limitation is that doing a poll vote, everybody on that call can vote, regardless if they are a voting member or a non-voting member. So there is some restrictions. So if you really need to do if you just need to pass your budget, or you're just taking a vote on which, trying to get a consensus from your meeting of which way we should go on an event that you're going to hold or something, and you're just trying to get the consensus of the room, doing a virtual vote is acceptable. If you have an uncontested officer election, it can be done with a voice vote. So anything you can do a voice vote on, no problem doing it virtually. If you have to do a ballot, you may need to look at some other alternatives, such as mailing ballots out or going online and finding a voting platform to utilize. So we did try to start at the beginning of this by doing a poll. So I'm going to pull it up right now real quick and see if I can pull it up and give you guys an idea of what that looks like. We're going to see if this works, because again, it was working on when we did our run through, but it wasn't working this morning. So let's see what we get here. Okay, so if you can see that, which hopefully you can, go ahead and cast your vote. And since we're getting some responses, I'm assuming that it is out there. We'll give everybody a second here to respond. So this vote is a yes, no vote, but you could also do a multiple choice, or you could, this is a multiple choice. You can select one or the other. You could also do a where you could select multiple, and we're going to try that at the end of this call. So I'm going to wrap this up here. We got 7 out of 9 people have responded. So I'm going to end this poll now. And I'm going to share the results with you, and you can see that 86% of you have hosted your own virtual meeting. So I'm hoping you're learning some tips from us tonight that are going to help improve those meetings, but I'm sure some of you have done some awesome meetings, probably better than what I'm doing. So the other question was, have you ever hosted a PTA virtual, has your PTA hosted a virtual event yet? And that only 3 of you said that you have. So hopefully we'll give you some tips and some ideas so you can continue doing that engagement with your families and your community and for your children. So we'll stop that. And we're going to move on here to some other meeting tips. So don't worry about writing down these. There's just multiple places where you can get tips. If you do a search of the internet, you're going to find a ton of virtual meeting tips. When I first started looking back in March and April, there was a few, and now you do it and you can go pages and pages and pages. But these are ones that we found that were the most useful to us, and I've shared those with you on the email we sent out today. So now we've covered how to plan for a meeting, how to co-host, some etiquettes as far as being the host or the presenter of the meeting, and also some tips and guidelines for your participants. We're going to move on to what looks like what most people are looking for at this point, and that is virtual events. Oh, wait a minute, yeah. Don't click on that link there. We're going to move on to virtual events. Okay, thank you. Virtual events are the same as when you're looking at meetings. If you go on the internet and do a search, you're going to find a ton of virtual events that are out there. Not so many 8 months ago, now everyone is doing them. Many in-person events would be held at in a specific place, on a specific day, at a specific time. But when you're planning a virtual event, you can incorporate some flexibility on there. Like tonight, we are hosting this live, but it is being recorded. So those that may not be able to attend tonight can view it at their convenience at another time. So make sure when you're thinking about this, when you're starting to plan something, think about how flexible you can be and explore the different ways that you may be able to allow others to view it or participate at various times. So think about recording your event or meeting, and then you post it on your social media or on your website, or email it out to those that weren't able to attend. Many virtual events can be held through your meeting platform. So if you find a meeting platform you want to use, you can use that for a lot of your different types of events. Or you can use your social media app, Facebook, Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm not up on some of them, but I've heard of people using Instagram to do different types of virtual events, such as, you could have your students record a talent and then stream them all on a particular day through your Facebook page, schedule different postings throughout the day for Facebook talent show. Or how about a watch party or a dance party? All of these sort of things could be done through Facebook Live or through a Zoom call. The possibilities are only limited to your imagination. So I'm going to share with you a video in just a second here. National PTA put this together. It's a 17-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, and it's called Beyond the Building PTA the Virtual Way. And so we're going to watch it where we're going to highlight some of the virtual events across the country to do with advocating, to do with family engagement and curriculum enhancements. So Connie, if you could go ahead and play that video for us.
Of PTA. Get outside of building mode. Think about the why and forget about the where. Why has your PTA done its work in the past? Probably your PTA tried to enhance education, connect families to each other and to the school, support educators, help the school achieve its academic goals, support arts and sciences, and give your members a voice. Your PTA probably also tried to have some fun. You may have used the building in the past, but you can do all of this without a building. Let's talk about now in the virtual world. Your PTA wants to give your members an active voice at the state, local, and national level. How do you do that? Well, here are some examples. Think about them, and can something like this work for you? Members of Elke Elementary PTA in Washington State saw a need and worked together to create a resolution on increasing access to school nurses, mental health workers, and social and emotional learning staff. They used social media to get the word out and brought their resolution to the state PTA for action. Kiker Elementary PTA in Texas held virtual coffees with their principal so that parents could learn about what was happening and plans for reopening. Del Prado PTA in Florida actively used its Facebook page to promote attendance at the virtual school board meeting being held to discuss school reopening. Lowry PTA in Florida used Instagram to hold a virtual school board candidates forum, asking each candidate the same question and allowing each candidate to submit a video of the same length to respond. These are all great examples of giving your members an active voice in the virtual world. What more can your PTA do to help members learn what they need to know and have opportunity to advocate on behalf of their children in this virtual world? How about hosting a regular virtual coffee with the superintendent? Or running a town hall on school safety? Or hosting a virtual panel discussion on parent choices for student attendance? Or helping the district and working jointly on a parent survey? Or polling your own members yourself and finding a topic they care about and then taking a position? You can do that. Even in this virtual space, your PTA will want to enhance education and curriculum, including areas like technology, arts, and sciences. How do you do that in this virtual world? Here are some examples for you. Greenbrier East PTA in Virginia hosted a virtual digital citizenship training, helping parents support their students in this virtual environment. Baldy Mesa PTA in Florida sponsored a virtual safari watch party at the San Diego Zoo. Castleberry Elementary PTSA in Florida holds virtual arts nights. Families drive through to pick up kits that support events focused on music, drawing, and painting. The events are recorded so that anyone who has missed one can still participate. There may be a member of your community who's willing to help on an event like this. Magruder PTA in Virginia provided parents with links to virtual resources so families could better support learning at home. Simonsdale PTA in Virginia partnered with Title I to help parents learn how to support reading readiness in this virtual world. Fraser Community PTA in Tennessee is using National PTA STEM Plus Family tools to hold a virtual STEM night. These are all great examples of enhancing education and curriculum. Can any of them work for you? What more can your PTA do to help enhance education and provide parents the tools they need to support education at home in this virtual space? How about a virtual writer or artist in residency? Or check with local museums, aquariums, and science centers for virtual programming. How about coordinating a virtual after-school program? Consider setting up tutoring classes. Maybe connect your PTA with a high school PTA to match up high school students and elementary school students. Or start a tutoring group with parents with specific professional experience to work with groups of students. And in this new virtual world we're in, your PTA will still want to strengthen connections between families, classmates, and teachers, and to build a strong, inclusive community. You can still do that. You just need to be creative and think about things differently. Here are some examples. Monarch Academy PTA in Maryland hosted a back-to-school virtual DJ dance party. Ogden Elementary PTA in New York hosted a second grade virtual variety show and a third grade virtual game show party. Monte Vista Elementary School PTA in California used vidhug.com to host a virtual costume parade. They sent a link to families along with instructions. Families recorded their students parading at home, and a collage was created and shared with families and on social media. And Hannah Holbrook PTA in Utah screened The Incredibles 2 for PTA movie night. Families socially distanced outdoors and had fun together. Spiritwear shirts were available for pickup at this event as well. What more can your PTA do to build a stronger, inclusive community in this virtual world? How about meal donations and pickup? Socially distanced, of course, to support families in need. Maybe you'd like to distribute the same soup or lasagna recipe. Ask everyone to cook it and drop it off, and then have your PTA distribute. How about a community-wide family scavenger hunt, sending students and their families throughout your area to discover clues? Maybe your PTA can host announcements each morning on Facebook Live and bring your community together, highlighting important events, calling out students and families for recognition. Or consider holding a virtual diversity and inclusion book club for parents or for students or for both, and maybe partner with your local library to do so. There's so many things you can do. Think about a virtual cultural heritage night or a virtual family bake-off, or host a virtual grade level meetup for teachers and parents. You can do this. We can do this. Flex your creative muscles.
Thank you, Connie. That goes on a little bit longer, and I will send you the link so you can watch the entire thing. But after watching that, could your PTA do one or more of those events? What can you imagine that your PTA could do virtually to provide enrichment, engagement, and advocacy opportunities for your PTA community? So here's when we're going to do our second poll. So let me just get that up. And tell us, what PTA virtual activities do you think your PTA would consider hosting? Check as many as would apply. This is a multiple choice. Check them all. Check none. So we'll give everybody a minute there. So while we're doing that, another place where you could get some ideas is the National PTA Facebook group called PTA Local Leaders. With over 7,300 members in this Facebook group, almost every other day, there is some new idea that's coming out for a virtual meeting or a virtual event. It's a place where you as a PTA leader could post a inquiry of your own. Has anybody tried doing a virtual art class? How did you do it? What type of program did you use? Those are all things that you could put out. This is a very interactive, and like I said, there's over 7,300 members on this group, and it is active every single day. I will be sending the link to that Facebook group out to you in the follow-up email that's coming out. So it looks like our polling is done. I will share the results here with you. So it looks like a lot of you are willing to try a lot of different things. I would be really interested if you typed in the chat if there is anything that you have already tried. So that would be interesting to see. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our tips and our ideas. So going to turn it over to Connie. Connie, did we get any questions in the chat?
No, we didn't.
Okay, well, we did get a few questions that came in on the registration that I wanted to just go through really quickly. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat and we'll try our best to answer them. But one of the questions that was sent to us, Connie, in the registration was, how do you build community without running an additional virtual event, since families do not need more screen time? This is a great question. Screen time has always been a concern of parents. How much is too much? How much is okay? But since the stay-at-home order back in March, and then schools going virtual in most of the state, and continue to now, there is a question about how do we limit some of the technology? How do we limit some of the screen time, but still try to do engaging things? So a couple ideas that were mentioned in that video was like an art class. And it doesn't have to be a demonstration art class on screen. It could be putting together art packets and sending home step-by-step instructions. Those instructions would be done without screen time. They could be done as a family art project, etc. And maybe the only time you get to the screen time in it is maybe you take a picture of your finished product, your finished artwork, and you submit it, and then the PTA could put together a slideshow that could be posted out on any of their social media sites or emailed around, or they could do a slideshow or a collage of all the different photos that they received of these artworks that can be shared around. Another idea, and this is a great one someone just mentioned to me recently, with the holidays coming up, what about reaching out to your class, to your child's class, and see if they'd be interested in doing, this is an old-fashioned word here, a pen pal program where they could share greeting cards with another member in their classroom or in their school community. And it doesn't even, where they could create the cards themselves, do the artwork, and actually use the postage system to mail a card to somebody and share communications that way, getting them off the screen a little bit. So, but again, it's all limited to your imagination. The only limit is your imagination. There is ways of finding that things can be done at home and then brought together in a virtual way so that you're not spending a whole hour watching a virtual presentation. Another question that was brought was, when meetings are not possible, how do we communicate the importance of our support? Well, I hope tonight we've shown you how meetings can be possible, but if they're not, you can still communicate through different social media. By working with your school district, they're communicating somehow with your parents and families to be able to send communications out with them that way. As far as how do you communicate the importance of your support, I think it's more important that we show how we're supporting our communities, that we are showing that we are still relevant, in that we are communicating with our school boards, we're communicating with our school officials, that we are sharing opportunities with families, be it finding out all the different courses that are being, the virtual online courses that are being available through our museums and libraries, and sharing that information out. It's different. It is different. Or finding things that you used to do and how do you convert it? Say that there's a group of parents that used to carpool. Maybe ask them, and since they don't need to be carpooling during virtual period of time. Maybe they could be couriers to help take things back and forth between the school and the families that cannot get out to get to the school to pick up materials that their child may need. So find ways of showing your community the importance of supporting PTA, that we are continuing to do so. The other question that was mentioned was how do we get new members when we're all virtual, when our children are not in school? I can't go into that very much because that's another topic for another day, but I would tell you every Illinois PTA has a Member Hub site, and on that Member Hub site you have access to a store, and through that store you can your membership people can sign up for membership through that store, pay their dues, etc. You can also use a lot of those things that are available on Member Hub. They have out there Member Hub fundraising, online fundraising opportunities for you. They also just recently added a free web page for PTAs. In the follow-up email that comes out, I will send out information on how to find all of that information that's available to you through Member Hub. So I see that we got one comment.
Yes, Kelly shared some ideas that they've tried, a pumpkin painting, decorating contest, how to draw, food drive for local pantry, Kahoot, and used Padlet to share photos.
Those are great ideas. And thank you very much, Kelly, for sharing those. A lot of things could be done, and then just sharing a photograph so that you're not adding too much more screen time to the family, and especially when you're competing for technology in the home. You only got so many computers, you only got so many devices, and you only have so much Wi-Fi bandwidth going through your house. So those are all great ideas. Well, I would like to, I think that is about all that we have for tonight.
Yeah, we want to respect everyone's time. And so any questions that we weren't able to get to, we will be on the call for a few minutes later. But we don't want you to feel like you must stick around. Carolyn and I would like to thank everyone for attending. You will be receiving an email in the next couple days regarding the session. This email will include the links referenced during the presentation, contact information for Carolyn and myself, and a link to a brief 5-question survey. The response to this survey will help us improve future session for PTA leaders. We also invite you to go to the Illinois PTA event page to sign up for additional training and informational sessions that are upcoming, or to our YouTube channel to view previously recorded virtual sessions. Links to both of these sites will be in the email. And again, we thank you for attending and taking time out of your evening this evening, and for everything you do for our children, schools, and communities.
Thank you.